Hello and welcome to the BC Storyboard. My name is Bo, and today I'm going to be talking through my thoughts and reflections on Jude, chapter 1, verse 6, if I remember correctly. Big shout out to Lockie. G'day, mate. And this one's for you, mate. So I'm just going to share what I've learned about Jude, verse 6, which actually is not this one at all. This is Jude, verse 5. But I felt I just wanted to do something else with the picture, so I drew him getting zapped by lightning, and that was a lot of fun. And whatever. So this is Jude verses 5. And the reason I put that there is just that it's important to see the context of any verse that you're studying. And the most important part of this is that first bit there. Now, I desire to remind you, because that's the linking phrase, essentially for the next three verses, because Jude is giving you three examples of people in the past that have rebelled against God, and then he's, destroyed them somehow. And this is showing us that they're three examples. So this is the first one. The second one is this one, Jude 1 verse 6, hooray! With my little angel on the side. And the angels who did not keep their own position but left their proper dwelling, he is kept in eternal chains in deepest darkness for the judgment of the great day. So, what I learnt as I was studying this is that one, a lot of people like to just ignore it, and most other people tend to go in the same direction, is that this is from a Jude is referencing a story that's not from the Bible, because the other two in the book, the next one is Sodom and Gomorrah, and both that and Egypt, the people being squished in the desert, they are those stories in the Bible, whereas this one's not. This one's from another text in First Enoch. Uh, oh, don't. Ah, see, I was trying to be fancy there. First Enoch. Anyway, we're trying things, and so it's from First Enoch, which is not part of the Bible. So there's then a lot of discussion in these texts about whether we should believe it or not, because if it's not in the Bible, then it may not. It's not inspired. It's not without error. Infallible, I think, is the word that people use to refer to the inspired word of God. It's infallible. It's without error. So if this story is coming from a text that could have error, well then what's it doing in here? And what exactly do we believe? But the people that I read tend to lie that whatever is actually well, okay, I'll state it another way. There is some truth in other texts. It's just that they may not be uh, totally true. They may have one or two little things that are not quite right, which is why they don't get in the Bible. And those texts are the Apocrypha. I think that's how you spell it. I'm going to be totally wrong, but First Enoch is in this thing called the Apocrypha. Apocrypha? I don't know. I'll find out the spelling later and and work it out. So the books that are in this one, which are actually in the Catholic Bible, I believe, those books, as far as Protestant churches go, are not inspired, which means they've got a lot of good wisdom and good advice and good things like that, but not inspired. Therefore, well, they essentially, when they were working out which books got in the Bible, there were some that just had some sort of dodgy content that didn't quite fit with the rest of Scripture, so it didn't make it into the Bible. So it's not like these things are full of heresy. It's just that they're not perfect. they didn't quite cut it to get into the Bible. It's hard to think that someday in the past there's just guys are going, nah, this one didn't quite make it in. Yeah, this one's alright. Nah, no, like they're just sitting there choosing and picking, and here we are revering this as the most epic book in the history of mankind, and just to think that there's some guy sitting there going, "Oh yeah, we'll have this one." Nah, that's a bit dodgy. We'll throw that one out. Um, so first Enoch, that's in this boat of slightly dodgy, and I was going to do this video a little bit differently. I had a story, and I'm not going to do it, but I did a lot of pictures, and it was a lot of effort, so I'm going to do it anyway. So this is the story from First Enoch that Jude is referring to. And there's a whole heap of little pictures here, but I'll explain essentially what they are. So the story goes that in First Enoch, he's describing the Watchers, which are essentially angels in their heavenly domain, in their heavenly state. And that's these fellas here. Asa, Al, and Semihaza, I like his name. Those two blokes, they're the leaders, and they're actually in command of a whole bunch of angels. And I had a fancy tool here that was going to do something fancy. So let's see if this works. Yeah, woo! So that's all their angels, and they're in charge of all those guys. And essentially, in this next pane here, they see women, human women, and they lust after them. So what they do is they come down, and we get rid of this girl here because she's not needed anymore, and bring in a replacement. And yeah, they marry. So there's little angel man and his wife, and they get married. Against God's will, of course. They come down because they lust after women, and they leave their position. So coming back to this bit, going back, there we go. So they did not keep their own position. So they left their position in heaven. That didn't quite work. There we go. They did not keep their position. So they left their proper job. They got out of there. Which is very naughty. They whatever watching or sending messages or whatever angels do. We don't know what quite the full extent of angels' jobs, but essentially they left it. They came down to earth, and in the story, they actually fully embody humans. So they leave their angelic bodies, become humans. So I probably should have got rid of wings, but anyway. And then down here, they have babies to these women. So they're kind of hybrid human angel sort babies. And these babies turn out to be this fella here, who's pretty scary looking. And he is a Nephilim, which is the giants which most people then tie in to be essentially Goliath and his sort of friends. The Anakim, or there's the giants that the Israelites were afraid of in Egypt in the first place. If you remember the story, they ran away from the Promised Land because there were giants in the land. Well, this is supposedly these guys. They're giants. They grew, really really tall, 9 foot or 10 foot, whatever the crazy height that it is, because that they were the crossbreed of angels and humans. Whether they were as tanky as this bloke here with the really stocky legs, I'm not sure. But I had a lot of fun drawing him. And the story goes is after... and also, these guys here, they teach humans how to make swords and how to, the quote is, do evil, so whatever that means. But they teach them how to do blacksmithing, how to make armor, weapons, to essentially go out and conquer and kill other people. And in First Enoch, this is supposed to be the beginning of evil, kind of like Pandora's box. They opened up evil, but we know that that's from Genesis chapter 3. Genesis chapter 3 with the fall. So that might be the reason why I didn't get into the Bible proper. And the last little picture here is the result of what they did. God essentially, how does it go? Yeah, he kept them in eternal chains in deepest darkness for the judgment of the great day. Some commentators say that this is sort of is a saying for all angels, that they're all, it's sort of like a metaphor for all angels are reserved for hell, in the great day. But most other scholars, that was one particular fellow, most other scholars say that these particular angels, so there was 200 of them with these two fellows in charge, they were bound and sent to the middle of the earth. Do you like my little Sarlacc pit, by the way? I had fun drawing him. It was supposed to be just a hole in the ground, but it turned into like this Sarlacc pit off Star Wars. They are bound in the center of the earth, and they're essentially bound there until Judgment Day, and then they'll be properly punished. So they're stuck there for what they did. Whereas other angels who are around, causing mischief, demons, whatever you want to call them, they're not, because they didn't do this. They didn't embody themselves as people and then take women, human women, and then have super duper babies. So that's First Enoch. Now, where do I stand? I think personally, I can't fully endorse this whole First Enoch story because it's not in the text. Jude doesn't say it specifically, but he does refer to it, and I can't actually find any other way to interpret Genesis 6, 1 to 4, which is where the story comes from. It says that the sons of God, i.e. the angels, came down and saw the daughters of men and, took wives of all they chose, that sort of thing. First Enoch uses that as its inspiration. So the inspiration for this First Enoch story comes from Genesis, the Bible itself. So I'm inclined to believe this angel story, as sort of far-fetched as it is, but there seems to be no other kind of logical explanation for it, unless you say that the sons of God are, royalty of humans, which is most people don't accept that. And personally, I like the idea of something crazy happening like this, because I don't know, it's just a bit out there, something fun to play with theologically. And also, it makes sense of, oh dear, sorry, I moved his arm. It makes sense of where all these giants come from. Like, you don't see 9-foot people anymore. Where did they come from? And this story ties it in and gives you a starting point for that. But at the end of the day, this particular story, there's not a whole lot of theology that helps you live, if that makes sense. Because it's kind of, I like to think of it as like lully theology, like a lully, because when you eat lullies, they're sweet and tasty, but not necessarily good for you. Whereas meat and vegetables, they fill you up. They're healthy. They're good for you. So you can kind of think of theology in the same way, is that this is something sweet. It's fun to analyze angels and demons and massive men and all that kind of stuff, but it's not necessarily good for you. Whereas stuff about atonement, redemption, Christ, the cross, that sort of stuff, all the kind of important things. We'll do a cross here just because you need to have the cross in every video, don't you? Yeah, there's the cross. That's essential theology. That's like our meat and veg that actually keeps us healthy. Whereas this is fun theoretical theology, just thinking stuff. But we can't kind of go out on our soapbox and go, this is the truth, because it's not 100%. I'm sure Enoch, whoever wrote Enoch, it wasn't actually Enoch, it was written in 200 BC or roundabout, so it couldn't have been Enoch. Whoever wrote this could have taken a few little liberties with some of the details. For instance, the names, the amount of angels, what they actually... There's actually dialogue between the angels in First Enoch. They have all these arguments and things. And, whether that's actually true or just poetic license, who knows. But irrespective, the text in the Bible is what we believe. And the text is that Jude is saying these false teachers that have come in, they're like these angels that left their domain. They left what God planned for them to do, and God's going to punish them. That's the point. All this sort of angel story nonsense is really just a tangent, which is a whole lot of fun, but not necessarily helpful. So that is Jude 1, verse whatever it was, Jude verse 6. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll be back next time with my thoughts on Jude verse 7. Cheerio.